Oregon City Art Commission meeting, July 21st. We are starting at 7:04. Meeting begins. So we'll quickly go through the adoption of the agenda. Anybody have?
We do need to make roll call.
Okay.
So,
Roll call, please.
thank you. Commissioner Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus is not here. Commissioner Bjork.
Here.
Commissioner Carlson is not here. Commissioner Jones, not here. Commissioner Lugo.
Here.
Commissioner Planton, not here. Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Woodward.
Here.
Excellent. Thank you.
We'll quickly go through the adoption of the agenda. Everybody in agreement for the agenda for tonight? Yes.
Yep.
Move on to the approval of the minutes for the meeting minutes of June 16th. Does anybody have any additions or revisions? Okay.
Commissioner Woodward said
So for the minutes for July 16th, if there are no,
Wait, hold on.
Sorry,
Hold on.
is it June 16th?
yeah, there's minutes for June 16th, and then there was minutes for July 7th for the work session.
Okay. I don't think I was there on June 16th. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you.
Oh, I was. Oh, okay. Sorry. I just came back
You
from
can approve minutes
vacation.
anyway. I
All
think.
All right. Forget it then. I was there.
Okay, so if there are no other corrections for the June 16th meeting, corrections are approved as distributed. Next is the July 7th work session minutes. Does anybody have any revisions or additions? And if there are no further corrections for the July 7th work session, the minutes stand approved as distributed. Our next agenda item is the website content.
Wait, public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, public content.
Comment?
The public person that's sitting next to me is an intern helping me out tonight to make sure that we can move the camera back and forth for Jen. Commissioner Woodward.
You're welcome to make comments.
Yes, absolutely.
Important role.
And your name one more time?
Nicholas.
Nicholas. Welcome. So no public comment.
There's no public.
We will move on to the first discussion item, which is website content. And Mr. Garrett, would you like to lead us off on that?
Yeah, so I went and bounced around to a wide variety of different arts commissions to kind of get a sense of what they have on their sites. One of them predominantly is profiles. So I would like to send out an invite to people to write their profile and even submit a piece of either their picture or art piece that they feel represents who they are for the Arts Commission page. And so I will send that out.
Can we have like a word limit or character limit or kind of format of like,
Yeah, it'll be on the actual request.
okay, just so we don't get little tinies and giants.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'm going to add is the Arts Commission mission statement and get that on there. Go from there. And then as we move forward with different, I'll put the meeting notification there so people will always know that that's where it's at, as well as the main page. And then I was also going to put any events that we have that we're going to be at.
Great.
And did you, you might have mentioned it, do you want us to submit a headshot or take a headshot here or?
Yeah, so if you have a headshot, you're more than welcome to do that on the form that I'll send out. It'll actually have a place where you can upload the image. Or we can, if you're like, I don't have one that's really good, we can do one here as well.
And then will you bring it to the next meeting for approval, or will you send that out for approval before the next meeting? The content that's on the first page?
Do we need to have it approved?
I mean,
Or just for-
I can send a message out that I said I updated it, and if anyone looks at it and says, ooh, let me fix something, I can make a change, or do you guys really want to have a formal?
No, that sounds perfect. Just send it out and we can say, looks good, or can you change this? Okay, that's great.
I wasn't prepared for that question, sorry.
All right. Okay, and I think the next on the agenda is the proposed public art project. Mary Andrews could not be here tonight, so she asked me to present it.
Is this different than what she presented before?
Yes, so I'm going to go quickly through the slides. She included all the slides that she presented at the last meeting, at the work session, and then we took, kind of color-coded it for the new ones. So,
Okay, is this in addition or instead of?
It's in addition, it just goes into more detail of,
So it's the same project, just more?
Yeah, so
Exactly.
the request was to flesh out a little bit, and so Mary did, and with, oh,
Yeah, and since this is a public meeting, it's the first chance that we actually have to present it to the public.
Right.
so I'm going to quickly go through what we already went through in the art commission just to review it. It's just the sculptures that are often seen in other cities. There's cows, whales, I've seen in Vancouver, apples. Mary was focused on salmon. That was one of her passions because of it's an endangered species, and she thought it would be meaningful if we did that also for Oregon City and the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and their meaning with salmon. I'm going to keep on going. This is just the slides from before. And so the proposal idea was to do the same thing, to install salmon sculptures in Oregon City in front of area businesses and auction off the artwork for a fundraiser to protect the salmon or to support recognition of the Chinook tribe or any nonprofit that we agree on as a commission.
Or the commission itself, we discussed. The fundraiser supporting the Arts Commission's
Right.
mission.
Exactly, that it would support the art commission with agreement. Why it's not moving any further?
I'll just use my button.
All right.
No, it's not doing that either.
I hope you have the new one, because this was the end of the,
Oh,
yeah, this was the end of the original.
yeah, it says 7 of 7 on the slides.
Oh, my.
Oh, my.
Well, we have,
Yeah, the packet.
We have the full packet.
We can use language to describe what.
Yeah, and you
rest
do
of the
have the
slides.
full packet, Dan, if you can bring it up
Yeah,
from that. But we can go through it.
Yeah, let's just
We
discuss
can
it.
just keep on
Let me
going.
flip to that page.
No problem. It is color-coded, so that's where it kind
No,
of
it's
starts.
pink. We're
to-
starting off at the pink.
Yeah,
Yeah,
starting off at the pink. So with some phone calls to different companies that actually make the fiberglass and sell it to different cities, we got prices from 3 different companies, Icon Poly, Cow Painters, and Fiberglass Farm. So there were 2 ideas. We talked a lot about the sculptures themselves, and then Mary came up with a great idea for Plan B that we'll get into. But first, Plan A was to go ahead, buy the fiberglass sculptures in bulk, match artists with sponsors. So you would do a call for artists and say, this is as a project as in other cities. We're doing this in Oregon City, and send out a call for artists. Gather the artists that are interested. At the same time, you're asking for sponsors, gather the sponsors together, and at one meeting, you can match the artist with the sponsors. And the idea that Mary had was that the funding for the actual sculptures would be funded by the sponsors. What we're asking for through the Oregon City Commission, or not asking, but proposing, was that it's paid, a project manager is paid in order to manage the project. And so, on the next page, because this is back to front. So the Plan A costs, you'll find on the next sheet. The sculptures themselves are $850. There's a stand that would have to be made before they're installed. that could always be something that we could ask as a donation, or it's something that would have to be designed. Different cities do different things for it. The fabrication is, none of the companies we talked to had a salmon. They had sturgeon, but they did not have a salmon.
Oh, so it's design. It's not necessarily fabrication, but it's the design of the fish.
Yeah, and it is actually, they do call it fabrication because they have to fabricate one mold for it, and then from that mold.
Right,
they
right.
can- Yeah,
So it's design and fabrication, but yeah, I see what you mean.
yeah. And so that
So I have a
2/6.
question.
Go ahead. Yes.
So isn't that a problem that it's a sturgeon?
No, I'm saying because they didn't have a like, you don't have to pay for the fabrication design if they already have that model, but they don't have a salmon. So all they had was a sturgeon, which they gave me prices because they said a sturgeon is going to be the same size, and I can give you pricing off of that. But if you actually went with the salmon, then you'd have to pay an upfront fabrication design cost.
Gotcha, thank you.
Right.
Sorry.
And that 267 is for each of them, because I think it's runs from between the three different companies. They ran anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000. There's a shipping cost for each one, which is pretty minimal, $40 for each one. And then, of course, there is the payment to the artist of $750. So we based the amount raised by sponsors, 15 sponsors, at $3,500 each, at $52,500, and a profit of $21,645. But we're asking or proposing to do this project that there is a coordinator for 10 months for $16,000, and then incidentals for $4,000 that might go to marketing or
So, 15 sponsors at $3,500. What do you think the reality is of actually getting
That's a lot for
15
Oregon
companies
City.
to pony up $3,500? I mean, I could
lot for Oregon
imagine
City.
maybe Abernathy Center, maybe Providence, I don't know, maybe
yeah.
Clackamas.
Benchmade.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about different
Can we do
organizations, right?
can sort of be scaled up so that like maybe, for instance,
Or scaled down,
Scaled down,
fewer
right, thank
fish,
you, yeah.
fewer sponsors, because we're just not that big of
Yeah.
a community.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to do, or anybody in the commission, to do some research on that, to ask certain people that I know usually contribute to the community, would you be willing to spend $3,500? Another idea that Mary had was that companies partner on it. So one of the sculptures has two different companies that are sponsoring that sculpture, so the costs are a little lower. I mean, I think
Like
when
the Chamber of Commerce could be one sponsor that would incorporate multiple.
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, basically that means we have to fundraise $52,000, which is fine. That's a good project for us to do.
Yeah.
But that's what we have to do.
Any other questions?
So just, I was trying to figure out, looking at the way that the sheet was, it's basically 2,557 each based on,
Yeah, the budget's a
15.
little thin on the numbers.
so basically you got a per unit here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Per unit per large sculpture, and then the artist, and all of those are per unit charge. Is that correct?
Right, great.
Is the artist fee like a set amount, and then depending on, and then like if we only chose to have 7, right? But we would still have the same artist fee. Does that make sense? I just.
I feel like the artist fee would
Yeah.
not be a set amount, but I think we should look at Plan B, but for me
okay.
in these, I definitely see some 10 months at $1,600 to me is extremely low. I think that is a way too low of an estimate for the amount of time and work that this would require.
Yeah, I think we did it at 20 hours, and as we go further, we can talk about at the end, because there's some
Yeah.
other items
Yeah.
that we put in there, so it's more of a managing, but let's finish.
Let's do
and
Plan B.
bring
I can do that.
after that.
I can chill on it and let's hear Plan B.
Right. We'll figure, the 10 months was figured at $20 per hour for 20 hours a week, but there's a reason for that. So we'll get to the end,
Cool.
which incorporates that. So are you ready for Plan B?
I'm ready.
As we were talking, Mary said, hey, she said, what if, rather than going through the sculptures, why don't we just do a call for artists, for 3D artists? That would, and then you actually have a call for 3 to 5 artists. They design a weatherproof, whether it's in metal, whatever they want, whether it's metal or it's a wood sculpture or.
I like it better already, but sorry,
We
continue.
did too. We were like, that's a great idea.
Yes.
And so then we matched the artists with the sponsors again to fund the artwork. And again, same thing, funding was going to be for a project manager and the incidentals. So we took, in order to do the numbers for that, we took what we would spend on a sculpture, which would be approximately around $2,000. That's what the artist would get. But they would be responsible for their own materials. So $2,000 to the artist for their materials, and that would be the cover. We pay materials outside of that, that would be the charge to them. And then there's the numbers there, just kind of simple. And all of these numbers, because what we're really looking for is for project manager money, these can all be kind of flexible. We can, talk a little bit about, do we want to go that high? Do we want to go a little lower? And just, kind of rework the numbers a little bit.
So I'm just kind of wondering, like, why do we need a coordinator for a project like that? I mean, what if we just reduced the number of sculptures down to 10, did $2,000 per sculpture, and basically spent half of our money? That would still leave us with half of it for doing grants. And then why don't we coordinate the program? Because that would give us something to do.
Great lead-in to the next slide.
Okay.
So yes, maybe we don't need that. And so the next slide is,
Hold on. Flipping.
well, it's really the sponsorships, but we're gonna go into what the Art Commission could do to alleviate a lot of these and have fun doing it. So the next slide really is to the sponsorship, just a little information on it. Sponsor it for $3,000, and this would be for the actual artist, not for buying the sculptures, but asking an artist. 2 co-sponsors, they could do $1,500. And a lot of times how these people do, how other cities do it, is they will have a price for $3,000 to sponsor it. If you want to buy it, the purchase would be higher. Let's say $3,750, maybe $3,500. If they don't choose to purchase it and go to the lower number, at the end of the project, which goes to about 10 months to a year, you auction them off. And a lot of times cities make more money on the auctions than they do on purchasing. So this slide is to show there's different ways that we can make this look a little bit more manageable for sponsors. You can co-sponsor it, you can just sponsor it, you can buy it. So just different options. So they might be more open to it. And the way that Mary and I talked about talking with sponsors is to sell it as a marketing plan. That you go to a sponsor and you say, how much do you spend for a newspaper ad? Which runs 1 week, and it's probably $1,000 or $1,500 or however size. But what if we created a marketing plan for you for 1 year, and we will have you, your name out in the newspaper that we'll have an article about. We will have a gala where you'll be sponsored. we will have a meeting with the your name will be in the community for 1 year. You'll be in a parade. So
Parade.
what would that?
What a parade.
Parade's new.
Salmon parade.
Oh, yeah, the teddy bear parade.
Oh, the teddy bear parade, okay.
It's a float.
Because that's a lot of cities, that's how they like kind of bring these sculptures in for a year to the community, and the sponsors are there like bam, bam, bam all the time, and you start to get to know them. So that's another way to try to get their buy-in on it, is not so much that you're sponsoring a piece of art, which is beautiful and wonderful and valuable, but this is what we can do for you. We can give you a marketing plan that'll cost as much as you're gonna put a couple of newspapers in over a year. So, here we go. This is what everybody was already kind of knows. The way that Mary and I talked about doing it was through committees. That we would reach out to the commission and see if who would like to participate and what they feel they'd like to participate on. So you would have your marketing and your PR, sponsorship, events and promotion, the artists, and the logistics. And as we go through each next slide, it'll give a little description of what each of those do. So the marketing and the PR person would be in charge of identifying, planning, and executing the media campaign, working with community groups to promote the project, working with local government authorities when needed, write the press releases, and contact the radio, television, and newspaper for coverage. The sponsorship person. They'd identify and document a list of individuals, companies, and groups, organizations targeted for sponsorships, develop a sponsorship package, create a sponsorship agreement, and keep up to date the records of all those who were contacted by whom, who committed, and just an update on how that's going. The events and promotions, they'd organize and execute the auction events, the associated supporting events, create and maintain the project mailing list, have an adoption party, which is a really cute name for it, of the sculpture, and have them purchased by the sponsor. Chamber of Commerce, they've already said they would be open to doing an auction at one of their galas, depending on their timing and our timing. Put them in the teddy bear parade, in the final auction event. Person in charge of the artist identifies the artist to participate in the project, creates and establishes the criteria, creates a target list of artists, approval of selected artists, and then facilitates the artwork, the finished project, and the sealing of the artwork. And then finally is the logistics person, provides vehicles and people power to move the sculptures, manages the safe storage and warehousing of sculptures, works with the art committee to identify the delivery of the sculptures, liaison with the community to place the finished sculptures, and work with the manufacturer, that would really be the artist, and the town to install the sculptures. And that is the end, so I am open to questions and discussion and what you guys think.
Where should I start? Okay, let's see. So,
It's a fish.
maybe I'll work backwards from the one that's on my mind right now, because,
Sure.
so in outlining the committees, to me, that also outlined why a $20 an hour part-time person for 1,600 would not be appropriate for this, because we just outlined all of the skills and all of the things that they would have to do, and you can get a job for fast food for $19 to $20 an hour. And if we needed somebody with the skills and experience and knowledge to do all of these things, it's not going to be at $20 an
Well,
hour.
I hope I presented this correctly, because each of these committees is actually an art commission member. If you.
All right, I understand that. I'm not even talking about that right now. I'm talking about the potential of a project coordinator, and $16,000 not being enough and $20 an hour not being close to enough to hire a person that would have the skills to do all of the things that we just outlined, because the committee is just, in that outline, we were describing everything it would take to run the project, basically. And so that person would be doing all of those things that we just assigned potentially to the committees if we didn't have a project coordinator.
Why would they be doing all of these if an art commission member is doing,
Right, I'm saying if we chose not to do this, if we chose not to have the committees.
on either one, either Plan A.
Right,
or
Plan B, right, Plan A doesn't have the committees.
Yes, they do. Either Plan A or each of the Plan A and the Plan B has to include the committees. They have to.
Okay,
Yes.
so I guess I thought
Yeah.
Plan A was hiring the project coordinator.
No.
Plan B was not hiring the project coordinator and going with committees.
Each Plan A and each Plan B hires a project coordinator, but each art commission, if they would like, it would take one of these, what is it,
So
one
it'd
of
be
these five?
a coordinator and all of the committees?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Does that make more sense?
it does.
Okay.
I would be, we don't, obviously right now is not a good time because there's not very many of us in the room.
Yeah.
But I would be curious how much we would actually be able to fill these committees.
Right.
I know I couldn't be on it, and I'm pretty sure Selena couldn't be on it. I can't speak for the other ones, but this is a lot of committees and a lot of responsibility. And so I think that's something that would have to be addressed right away as a basic survey of the group to see if they would be willing and able to take on that additional responsibility, because it's going to be a lot of work.
Right.
So I think a lot of it would depend on that. And then my other thing, with the reason why I liked Plan B better than Plan A, because I was really concerned about the fiberglass sculptures themselves and the very unenvironmentalness of making 15 large fiberglass things. Which is, I mean, there's nothing environmentally friendly about fiberglass. It's the creation is toxic to the people, it's toxic to the environment. It just doesn't seem like a very environmentally conscious thing to do in this day and age, especially in that quantity. And if we went with the artist version where they create it, then they would have more of a mind towards that environmental side, whether they're working with a different type of material, working with recycled materials. We could even ask them to have an environmental approach to what they create. But to me, putting 15 large fiberglass things into Oregon City seems a bit, I feel like the community might even have issues with that, not just me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these sculptures are very, very, I know they're very common on the East Coast. I respect, and they're very common in the Midwest. That's where all these companies are located. But the Northwest, which is very environmentally conscious, you don't see it that often.
Yeah.
You see it far and in between.
And it's something that in the art world is getting to be, it started during a period when we weren't thinking about the environmental impacts of it, where we could just make giant fiberglass cows and put them all over, and nobody even thought about the environmental impact. Or thought about the idea of, well, maybe we make them with recycled plastics. Like, it never even came up. And I think that's something that we don't have the luxury of that anymore.
So, do you mind if I say?
Go ahead,
Oh, okay.
go ahead.
So overall, I really like the concept of this idea, but I do think it needs to be right size to Oregon City.
Yes,
We kind of
agreed.
talked in the beginning about, is the expectation right for what people might pay for it, or do we actually need 15? 15 seems like a lot for the size,
Right.
so trying to get it to the right size for our kind of community, I think is important. I lean more on the side of being able to hire a coordinator to be able to do many of these things, because at least I can only speak for myself, is that I, as an art commission member, can't see myself. I certainly don't have any of these skills. This is not me at all. So, I couldn't fill any of those roles. And I would hope that it would be that person that was, the coordinator making the calls to connect with artists and, doing a lot of that stuff. And then there be support from the commissioners as needed. And that potentially if our expectations were smaller in size for the number of sculptures and whatnot, maybe it could be more manageable for a coordinator, if that makes sense.
And-
And then I did notice one piece, which was this gala piece, which does seem to be important with regards to like the auctioning, and I think there will be costs associated with that, and that's not written into the budget.
Yeah, the 4,000 was for incidentals and this presentation is like as far as you could go on this project, as big as you could go. But all of these could be, taken off. They could be very simplified so that there isn't, we don't put them in a parade. And if it's by an artist, they don't have to be brought, the logistics of it, they don't have to be sealed. So the artist would probably be in charge, if there was a smaller group, that they would be in charge of bringing it to a certain area. So this is if you were gonna do, my sister did almost 40 of them in her hometown. And it's common on the East Coast, and they had sponsors like within a couple months. They had sponsors for all of them, but it's a different environment there. In Oregon City, I know that is one of the cons is people aren't as familiar here, and we're not a town, that has the money of Lake Oswego, and they lived in a kind of a town outside of Hartford, and it was an easier sell and marketing to the residents there. So that is, I kind of recognize that with Oregon City. This is new, and $3,000 is a lot of money in a recession.
Does Commissioner Woodward have anything to say about this?
Yes, Commissioner Woodward?
I'm just thinking, and I agree with the conversation being thoughtful, and I'm appreciating that we're having this kind of dialogue around what is right for the community and matching our needs as a commission with the thinking of a project of this kind. So I just want to express appreciation for that. My only other thoughts that I had since we had our planning meeting around this was I do have some concerns around focusing on this project so exclusively in the way of visual art and the amount of money and effort that we're talking about. And I'm a visual artist and I want visual art in the community, but we are the arts with an S commission, and I just want to keep that in mind as we're talking about budget and allocation and effort. And I know we're gonna get there, but I just wanted to it's been in the back of my head kind of gnawing at me that I want to make sure that we're supporting a broad kind of spectrum of artistic practice.
Yeah.
So
It's good input.
I love the thinking behind that project, and I don't want to say that I'm not interested in supporting it. I just think how can we get more creative we're starting to talk about right now, and I appreciate that.
Right. That's great input. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'd
Jen.
like to offer my feedback too. I feel like it's a good project. I think that we should do something rather than just have meetings all the time. And this is something to do. I like Plan B. I think that we might need to pay the artist a little more than $2,000 though. I think $3,000 a sculpture is probably more like what it's actually gonna cost. So anyways, but I think we should, seriously consider it because one of our commissioners put this together and we've got the money. I mean, we could pay for it ourselves, so. And it would promote the arts in Oregon City and, that's part of what we're here for.
Wesleyan has just started a project like this. They're doing chairs. So they have kind of beautiful Adirondack chairs that are being given to artists to paint and install in their town. So it doesn't have to be a large sculpture project, doesn't have to be large, expensive, but it could be a lot less.
So, additional thoughts, thinking about the project coordinator and the committees. I'm wondering with having 5 committees and the project coordinator about things getting really confusing, both for the coordinator and for the committees, of like separate information that they would need to know what's happening. And I wonder if maybe it would be more effective if we had one committee that oversaw the project coordinator, or even 2 committees, like an artist and logistics committee, and then one that was events, marketing, sponsorship, because those all overlap. So the information that needed to be shared would be within that committee, whereas logistics and artists would be less about promotions and wouldn't really need to be keyed into that marketing things in the same way. But if I have 5 committees and a project coordinator, just seems like an email stream nightmare of trying to cross communicate. All right, what's marketing doing? What's events doing? How's our sponsorships? Of like, it just seems like a lot.
Right.
Seems like a lot. My other thing that I think we need to think about is we had our work session, which was intended to talk about the budget, which we didn't quite complete. And I think at some point we need to get back to that and think about our priorities, our mission, and how we want to spend our money, and say, as a group, yes or no, we want to move forward with this project, but then yes, what else do we want to do with our funding, and how do we want that funding to balance? Like Jen was saying, what about the S in the arts? And what about grants? And how is this going to serve our mission, but also balance with our other goals and needs of the community? And so I don't know, I think it needs to be at a meeting on the agenda when we can have that conversation of making that choice. When there's a good number of people here, commissioners. But I think we need to make a more intentional choice. I feel like it was presented and now we're kind of hashing out the details without really having committed or not committed.
Right. Right, and I think that's true. I think we have to get back to this presentation was just to kind of hammer out to details to give the commission a chance to make a informed decision. But it's just an idea, and the commission has other ideas and other needs and wants.
But but on the other hand, it's something that we could do, and then in the meantime, we can also do the other stuff. I mean, we have $40,000 from last year and this year, and here's a project that one of our commissioners has written up, and if we did this, we could be doing other things while we're doing this, in preparation for our next thing to do. I feel like at some point we have to stop having meetings and we have to actually do something.
I agree, we just need an intentional choice to do or not do this, and then how much money do we want to commit to doing it?
I mean, I'm also really interested in your ideas about just doing grants, which would be a completely different kind of thing. It wouldn't be, it's something that we can do. You could probably just do it yourself, honestly, but we could support you in doing it. And then we could do something else while we're doing that.
Yeah, I'm all for moving forward with this. We just have to decide our budget spending and what we want to commit to it. And then if we put say this, we're going to do this project, yes, we all agree, we're going to do it with a project coordinator and 1 committee, 2 committees, or 5 committees, and we're going to allot $20,000 to it, then we can move forward with the details, but we have to agree on those things to be able to even start of like, and I feel like that would be an agenda item that we would vote for, and if we could put it on the next one, but we have to have the next one, and everybody not everybody, more people should be there. I guess that's what I'm asking. Can we put it on the agenda and everybody show up and vote for it or not? Or,
Make the request, I'll put it on the agenda.
all right, I'm moving. Can I move? Can we?
Can we just, yeah, not yet.
Don't yet. I won't move yet.
I just had a question, more of a technical, is there any specific process that we have to go through to be able to spend that $16,000? And I get real sort of technical, in the sense of can we just direct appoint? Can we just choose someone? Or do we have to select from 3? This is more of a,
Are you talking about hiring the project coordinator?
yes, that's what
That has to follow.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's gonna be
It'd
be
probably
city
a
hire.
city employee,
Yeah,
so they have to go through the
whole hiring
process.
process. Yeah.
yeah, or like an RFP. I don't know if it would be a city employee.
It would be a
It
city
could be.
employee.
We would need to
That would be
figure it
really
out.
expensive.
Well,
Oh, it would be a city employee that's already
Well, I don't, no.
here that would do it?
No, a
Or
city
would
employee
we
that would
do
do
like
that.
sort of a request for a proposal, or would we, kind of put, I'm just trying to
The
think,
hiring process would go through the city,
okay,
so the city would be responsible for the hire.
okay.
There is a
So that
possibility.
will take time.
yeah.
Yeah,
And they would
there
be
is a
city
possibility we could also do it as an RFP. I would just need to find out the details more as we get.
Yeah, I just know where I work, there are certain levels upon which, if you're spending less than $50,000, you can do like a direct appoint, so you only have to find out information from 3 different providers and then potentially select one, which is different than a full RFP that could take a while. So I think information like that would be helpful, just with regards to what the process would be to actually hire the coordinator and how much time that in and of itself will take.
And I'll generate a staff report for you guys at the next meeting to help clarify all of that.
That'd be great.
There's a lot of questions that will need to be,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's important to remember, anything that we do is gonna take time and it's gonna be complicated because we're working with a city but that's how it's gonna be no matter what we do.
And I just want to go back to one of your points about, the amount of people, and it might be too much. If, our quorum here is 4 people. If we were able to
5 total.
provide, okay, I guess under quorum, not more, a quorum is 5, so anything under 4 would not constitute a public meeting. If there were
but
4 people.
unfortunately, a subcommittee, if you actually do that, a subcommittee of no matter what number requires a public meeting rule and we would have to publish it. And that's why we need to kind of make sure that we figure out a way to work within the system for that to do this, because subcommittees are required by public meeting law to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you confirm that
You can have
I
work
know
groups.
other art commissions and they operate with the events that they're doing, and they operate below quorum, and then that body brings that to the next board meeting for discussion and for public hearing.
Right, but
So-
again, it's the keywords that you use.
Okay.
If you use the word subcommittee, then it now
And I-
becomes, that's a state mandated requirement. And then
Okay.
if we're just working in small work groups together.
Yes, if we're
and,
working in
you
a
know,
small work group.
we can solve those. We'll actually talk about that here in a
That's
minute
what I
at
meant, yeah.
the staff. So words are, in this case, everything. So we
Yes,
have to be very,
okay.
very careful.
So wrong choice of words.
So scratch, so we say work groups. Okay.
Yeah, I hate being the bearer of bad news when
No,
it
that's
comes to
fine.
that, but it is something that's super important to make sure that we
Thank you.
abide by the law.
Thank you. Yes, so if we had small work groups that reported to the next monthly or public meeting, that would be allowed.
So maybe, Tris, I don't want to presume to know or you guys have put so much in this with Mary, you were working with Mary, is that correct? Do you want to get back with Mary and, since it seems to be Plan B is what people are leaning towards, do you want to do like a consolidated, concise thing that we could put on the agenda for next time to make a choice about together? Do you want to change, like, I don't know, I don't,
Commissioner, could we vote on whether we prefer Plan A or Plan B, just so that we know for sure?
do we need to vote on that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to know rather than,
Yeah,
okay.
or take just a general,
I mean, could we just ask every,
A straw
Yeah.
poll.
each commissioner
An
just whether
unofficial-
we prefer Plan A or Plan B?
sure. I prefer Plan B. How about you?
I'm fine with B.
Do you have a preference?
I don't have a preference.
So no preference.
I liked the point that you made with regards to the fiberglass and trying to move away from something that's not environmentally
Friendly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
friendly.
Trius, do you have a preference?
Yes, Plan B.
Cool. What's your preference?
Plan B.
And Jen, do you have a preference?
B,
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure it was public.
And
So Mary is on, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jean.
I just have one other comment that I think, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but when we had our work session and we were coming to this point of like, do we move forward on this project? Part of the discussion was needing the details, and that's what was brought, more details was brought tonight. But I still feel like there's confusion around, are we gonna end up at another meeting where we don't have enough information for some people to like say they want to move forward? I have some concerns that, because we tried to say like, let's just split the budget in half between these two focuses, the 20K bucket, for each, for this project and then for grants. But people were like, well, we don't know how much of this is actually going to cost, and we need to have more information. So like, what does that mean for people that want more information?
Yeah, and they're not here. Yeah.
Exactly. Can we do like some kind of pull through, Dan, to make sure that we get the information we need to be able to move forward at our next meeting?
so, to give a little feedback, the work session was to ask to bring back some information so that we could help assess an item that's on our agenda. And so that's towards the end of the agenda. We were supposed to present this first so that we could get a sense of cost and then move on to the discussion about grants. Commissioner Planton asked and I generated a staff report related to that. And then we were going to have a discussion about how we could potentially adopt any kind of a structure based on your presentation that you did at the work session to help kind of shape that a little bit. And so I just want to give you
Yeah.
guidance of where we were at from the work session, and
Yeah.
you guys can.
Thank you.
Great.
So maybe we continue forward in our agenda, because I feel like we've reached a point where we need to discuss the next part before we can move forward with the other, I'm calling it the fish project. What is it called?
Yeah, we don't have a name now.
Yes, so everybody comfortable with moving forward to move into
Okay.
the program presentation?
Commissioner Woodward. copy.
Okay.
All right, so everyone should have in your packet a staff report from us related to the guidelines related to grants. Mostly the key elements are making sure that there's some impact to the community, transparency, accountability, and equity and fairness as you develop out the grants. I think probably I'll just jump to the staff recommendation on this one unless anyone has any further questions, and then you guys can discuss all you want after that. But our recommendation was that the Arts Commission, after the Arts Commission has decided what program initiatives they will undertake, it will recommend the staff work closely with the commission to develop a program with guidelines and processes. Due to the extensive experience that we have with the existing staff, related to, as program development, there's no need to hire an outside consultant in this case for program development. We would just work with you directly to help potentially maybe draft a key, once we have the parameters of what you want for kind of a grant, we would draft something and then work with some work groups to some individuals to help shape that into what the art community would best in their interest. Because again, I'm a city employee and not an artist, and so you would then, your input would be super helpful to help recraft that into the shape that you would want it to be.
Yeah.
And then you would be able to have something you could bring to the commission to discuss.
That's great. That sounds like the city would be super helpful, and there's a really strong kind of structure support in place already to work with and around to just kind of provide the Arts Commission and arts community specific bits to make it work.
The only question I have is the 20,000 amount. Is that the 20,000 out of the Art Commission budget, or is that in addition to the 40,000?
That was just based on a template that we had that said, oh, well, you know, we had to put in a dollar value amount. I mean, you could be less, you could be more. That isn't stone. That is.
Yeah, I feel like that's the number we're trying to find with that, is figuring out how we're going to spend our budget and how much we're going to allot to the public art potentially fish program, to grants, to other things, to, that's the ultimate question.
Yeah, it's my understanding that this is part of our budget. And
Yeah.
our budget is the 40,000,
Yeah.
and so this would be half of it, which would be the 20,000. And then there isn't much detail, but we would ultimately determine whether or not there was, you know, a certain amount that people could apply for, you know, like a limit of $5,000 each, or all of those little details. But for our big picture, which we're trying to understand, the proposal here would be to have 20,000 of our 40,000 in grants.
Yeah, and with that number, we could flesh out a grant program however we saw fit to support the community, whether it's for organizations or businesses or individuals. We could kind of decide what the community needs right now and then work within that 20,000.
I have to say, I mean, I think that for the money that we have, it's much more of a, you know, we get a lot more for our money by pursuing the grants program. I mean, I would think that we should just, $40,000 is not very much money. I mean, I think that we should just take our $40,000 from our first 2 years and just roll it into like a whole bunch of grants that like promote the arts in Oregon City, and just work with the city to like write, you know, a a scale of grants, maybe one big one and a few medium-sized ones and a few small ones, and really just, you know, try to get some money to artists in Oregon City to promote art in our community.
And thinking about the grants and your presentation and this inclusion on it, what do you think about, as part of the grant program, a mural grant?
Sure.
Well, yeah, in the grants program, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But I mean, that's a detail that we could sort out, once we commit money to a grants program.
Right.
How much, what do we want to spend it on? Yeah.
So my thought is I like the 20,000, the part of the money being put to the grant program. The grant program is my favorite part of what we've been talking about. But I think that, you know, this is every 2 years, and so then in the next 2 years, we have the ability to either expand it or not. But at this point in time, you know, it's not clear to me what the demand is, or what people would be asking, or, you know, and all of that. And by being able to move forward both with a grant program and then also something else in this first round, that we might be able to both learn about what people are interested in having, kind of what kind of things they would like to invest in art through the grants, right? We would learn through that first cycle, and then we could say the next cycle, oh, we should actually just be continuing to invest the full 40,000 or not. So at that point, at this point, that's how I'm thinking about it, is that I really want to be able to see that we have a grant program, but I also can see us supporting some other type of directed art. So
Sounds good.
those are my thoughts.
And I mean, I do agree. I feel like we can support a lot of what we're hoping to see in the community through grants, including murals, creation of public art in our community. Those are things that can be supported and initiated through a grant process. I think too, we had also talked about, I can't remember what we decided that financially how it would work, but wanting to do research, research about what our community needs, like do an actual study.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. And you mentioned that you
Daniel,
wanted to do a study on Arts
Yeah,
Center.
Commissioner Woodward was the one that brought that up.
Yeah, and was that was something that would come out of our budget, right? That's not something the city has, it would, so then we would have to account for that somehow.
I like that idea too. Those are all good ideas.
And repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
I was talking about how we had talked about setting aside money to do research, like a study about the community and the community need, as being an important first step for us to know, so I could see doing the grants, because, I mean, we still are, COVID's still out there, and businesses and nonprofits and individuals are still struggling. But also research to figure out where we are.
So then we'd have money towards a grant program and then a portion towards a community study to see, for whatever that costs to hire a consultant to do that, or however that, that sounds good. That's a good beginning step. Discussing more and more about the sculpture project, it's a wonderful idea. Maybe we're not quite ready. Maybe we're not quite there yet. Maybe a grant program and,
Well, it might be that there needs to be some money spent on the salmon project, but not with that expectation that it's going to be like the full thing's going to happen, right? But we need to make progress on it. And to me, it does seem like it's a lot of work, and it does need to have a person that is a designated coordinator for it. And so it may be that what we're saying though is that we need to develop that idea, and we need a coordinator to develop that idea, right? So it's a little bit like the study, but anyway.
Sorry, I thought of something and I was trying to contain myself. Wait, my turn. So, recently in a city whose name I shall not mention, near to us, and this is actually common in other cities, the city itself has an arts and culture program coordinator or manager that specifically does this position we're talking about for the fish project, but that is their part-time or full-time job year-round for the city to support and do arts programming and projects. Obviously, we as an arts commission can't facilitate or make that happen right now, but I could see on our kind of long-term strategic planning, if we had a person that was a city person who was focused 100% on arts and culture, or arts with an S in Oregon City. To me, that seems like a really valuable thing to work towards, and I can share the job description that I didn't apply for, but somebody I know is applying for right now for that position. It's a city government position for arts in that city.
I love that.
For the intern.
Anyway, so it's another thing to just get in our minutes, to put in our brain,
Yes.
to think about as a goal.
I think
Document,
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
great idea.
Anyway, I wanted to share that. I call it a brain share.
That's a really good idea. That's the kind of idea you could sell to a city commission.
Right.
Yeah, and that would be the time, then the fish thing, it would just smoothly, it'd be all right,
Absolutely.
project coordinator, we would like to have this program happen, help us to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you could forward me the unnamed cities
Yeah,
job description. It would help me
I will.
understand
The name that
what
did
we
not
would
be
be looking at.
yeah.
I think for a city that's not directly near us, it's my understanding that I think it was Tigard had a position in their mayor's office
Yeah, there's actually a lot of cities in
that
this
did that, at
vicinity,
least
yeah.
when we were working with the, to do the intersection project. I had met a person over there that was with the mayor's office, and they helped facilitate things like that. So that's a place to look as well.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of them. Portland has one, because Portland has one, Beaverton has one, I believe Hillsborough has one, not the one that I'm talking about right now, this is a new position.
What did she leave out?
But a lot of our surrounding cities have one, have an arts program coordinator or manager for the city already. Anyway,
Great.
what time is it? Are we gonna finish on time today? I really hope so.
So-
Doing really good.
I'm wondering if for the next meeting, that if we could have, you know, I don't know if this is appropriate, but a couple of options, you know? It was nice to have
menu.
option A versus option B, right? If we know there's the, you know, I'll just call it the salmon project, or a specific art engagement project. And then there is the grants project, and then there is this other sort of bucket of
research
money,
study.
sort of the research. And then these either options to, you know, invest 20,000 in the first two, you know, 20,000 in the fish and 20,000 in the grant. Or the second option is, only do 10,000 this year for the fish, but do 20,000 and then have 10,000, you know, so that we have some specific choices to kind of talk about, but for us to also understand if we were investing less in the fish, but we knew the whole project cost would be $20,000. We need to know that whole project cost and then understand what we could potentially get for less.
So if we're gonna do $20,000 for grants and say we did something like $20,000 for public sculpture, which isn't nearly enough for the fish project, why can't we do $20,000 and just do it as public sculpture? And say we're gonna fund five public sculpture.
Yeah, as opposed to the whole
Projects.
fish
Yeah,
and all, I was thinking the exact same thing.
It could be as
that are
simple as
more,
that.
that have more
Simple
depth
as
to
that.
them than I mean, a fish is nice, but we can do things that are more culturally engaging and have more, I mean, not that the fish isn't important, but there's a lot of really important stories you can tell through art. Anyways,
I think we are borrowing that idea that many cities did for many years, and yeah, I think if we kind of rethought it smaller and more Oregon City focused, maybe that, I was thinking the same on thoughts as of the bucket of money for grants programs and a bucket for events, for an event project, whatever that might be, and then the community research, I think, is really important.
so who's gonna write these things up for our next meeting? I mean, so we're gonna have to write up proposals to vote.
It's like, I'm stepping
Daniel?
back,
I don't think
stepping
that they
forward.
can do that.
Oh, he can't do
I
that?
could
Create the
probably
language.
generate
Can you do that?
a staff report that would say, here are some options, and just kind of a combination. I keep it pretty generalized. I mean, again, if this isn't appropriate for you, you guys want something else, but I feel like you're like so close, and it's like,
Yeah.
if we just had option A, option B, option C,
Yes,
or something,
be
and
great.
then
Yeah,
everyone
and
can
then
say,
we
Yeah.
present those options,
then
and then
I
we,
make a motion to do, you know.
Yes.
Well,
Exactly.
and you've been listening to us the whole time, so I think you seem like you have a really good understanding of what
And I
arts
think
commission is
I can do it in a way that is just the process part of it, where you guys can then, have the discussions and the debates that are related to the art part. But I think I can put together at least a staff report that would say, here are some options of how to bucket based on the discussion about having 3 specific items, and shift it around, and everyone says, okay, I like this one.
yeah, with grants being high on the priority, research
Yeah.
being high, but probably less expensive.
Well, if you think about it, we could do a public project as a high priority. Second one option would be a research one as a high priority, and then a third one would be the grant as a high priority. And just
Well, I think we need to put,
buckets.
but yeah.
Well,
We need
he
to
would
figure
write
out the
up
budget.
all of those things as like different proposals for us to vote on, so.
Yeah.
Can you find out, Dan, if the city has run a community kind of input project before on any kind of event and see how much it costs?
We
to do
did,
that? Like,
we ran OC 2040,
yeah, how
Yeah,
much?
good
which
example.
I mean, I'm just guessing, but we probably spent $200,000 on that.
Yeah, but that,
But that was a whole community survey.
yeah, that was.
It was a 2-year project, but I mean, that's kind of sort of what it takes to, I mean, $10,000 isn't gonna get you that much.
I guess I'm concerned if we don't put numbers on it, we're gonna end up with voting on our priorities, but then having to wait another month to then vote on the budget.
I mean, I think that we can easily do $20,000 on grants and $20,000 on sculpture. I think that's definitely in our field of experience. That's something we can definitely do.
Could we reduce that a little bit to leave, like, I don't know what research costs, but
Sure.
say, find out what, subtract from the public sculpture the cost of the research. If research costs 5,000, then
Sure,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
20,000 for grants, however much it costs for the research, and then the rest goes to the public art
Event,
thing,
project.
Yeah, I mean, like, can
Exactly.
you just talk about that for a minute though? So like,
Yeah.
if we want to do research, quote unquote, like, what kind of research do we want to do? Because, I mean, that's gonna, I mean,
That's a
it's
good
gonna be
question. That's a fair
expensive.
question.
I mean,
Yeah.
to hire an agency that does community research, I mean, you have to have an idea of what you're hiring them for, and then, I mean, I mean, probably OC 2040 costs more than 200,000, but I don't really know for sure. I mean, I know that we hired, I mean, we had this project that like went with us for 2 years and had regular monthly meetings and had broad community input. I mean, we generated over 1,000 community responses. I mean, most of the cost goes into the research firm, but I mean, whatever we hired a research firm for, we'd have to know what we're hiring them for.
That's,
I feel like
yeah.
even $20,000 isn't going to do much of anything. I
Commissioner
have to be honest. Sorry.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yeah, so one of the things I think I was wondering about for research was really just a chance for public input beyond people coming to our meetings. So whether that's having paper handouts at festivals that are coming up where people could fill it out, like, these are my priorities about supporting the arts in Oregon City, or an online survey. And hopefully this is something that the city has capacity for, taking on that work. Like, if we came up with the questions, could there be people from the Parks Department, from the Tourism Department, from different agencies handing out, information to folks to get feedback? I wasn't really thinking about the kind of research that we're starting to talk about. And I don't know if this is something that's of interest to everybody to pursue, but I understand that we were appointed as ambassadors of the community, but I do think it's like a welcome thing to have people be able to express their opinions about where especially city money is going. So that's my desire, to have some kind of public engagement about what we're doing before we do it. I know that slows things down, so I'm not trying to slow it down. It could happen in tandem with developing other programs. But it could inform, like, what we ask for in the future or what grants we apply for. Yeah, that's my thinking about that.
So I do think that, that it would be helpful if the city could provide us information about maybe the cost it would take to do a survey, right? And that being, you know, prepare an online type of survey. And then maybe also the support that might need to reach out into the community in a few other forms. And I would imagine that like the planning department or whoever had run the 2040 process would have good information about some, you know, high-level cost estimates upon what that would kind of take, and then also what kind of internal resources the city might have, whether or not they have someone that, you know, is really good at SurveyMonkey or something like that. I think that would help us out. And I do think that there is a possibility, you know, so that would help us out in the budgeting side, like with regards to it.
Yeah, and I think we could come up with survey questions.
Yes, and we could work on the survey questions, and there's the, okay, this is how we want to do the outreach. We want to do it, you know, online here, and we want to do 5 different outreaches to, you know, the Oregon City Farmers Market and go to the swimming pool or whatever it might be. So I think that that's helpful in understanding the scope of what we would need to set aside to do that. And then I do think that survey itself could be done in conjunction with us trying to figure out, learn more about the how we should be allocating the grant funds or what we should be included in that and
That's a
whatnot.
really good point.
Yeah.
I mean, could it be as simple as that you put together a questionnaire, and then every organization that I'm in, I've always answered some kind of questionnaire, so that questionnaire, it's as simple as giving it to the Chamber of Commerce, and giving it to Art in Oregon, and giving it to the Three Rivers Artists Guild, and sending it, and being there at the different, you know, celebrations and events, so that it isn't a high cost. There's one person that has to put take the questions, put it in an electronic application form, and then collect the data. And
We actually just recently did a cable survey, and what they did is they added it to the utility bill. And it was something that was
nice.
super inexpensive and a way to get that out to a wide variety of people. So that it'd be another staff report of coming back and saying, well, this would be kind of how much that would cost, because I think that
would
would
be
reach
great.
almost every citizen that has got a utility.
That would be perfect.
I love that because it's more than just asking our community what our community wants. It's asking all of Oregon City.
And we had a very good response from the related to the
Yes.
fiber project. And so
Love it.
That's great. This meeting is like just
We're on fire
on
today.
fire, like between
Yeah.
this idea about
High five.
hiring and art employee, and this is great. Yeah, exactly.
so when you put that in all the bills, was it an electronic survey they were able to?
No, it was actually something they returned, and so.
And they actually
and
said
they
they returned
mailed it back to us. I don't even think we offered any postage. They just sent it back on their own, shoved it in an envelope and sent it back.
Wow.
But it is an option to do SurveyMonkey as well, is where instead of an actual survey, you send out a QR code, and then it leads to the digital survey that they could then fill out.
I would vote for both.
Yes.
Because I feel like the snail mail respondents will be very different demographic
Yeah.
than.
So I think being able to give you guys a price related to that as part of the staff report for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be amazing.
A lot of work.
Yay.
All about that.
So then we'd have pot for the,
Yeah.
Yes.
for the grants.
Public
Pot for
art.
whatever that
Research.
questionnaire is, and pot
Yes.
for a project,
Love it.
whatever we
Great.
decide that to be.
Yeah, this is great.
And with 12 minutes to spare.
So anything else on the agenda?
Just the larger budget question, but I think that might,
I think that's what we're kind of circling around, but I think we're getting close.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're good. I think we always like to end our commissioner updates. Any last
Oh
words?
yeah, we want to do our share thing.
Yay, sharing
Commissioner
circle.
Woodward, would you like to lead us off? What are you working on? What would you like to tell us about, and any other input?
Thanks. I'm just recovering from COVID, and that's why I can't be with you tonight. And I'm feeling a lot better, so hopefully the next meeting I'll be in person. And I was really bummed because I was going to have my paper studio out interacting with folks when I got COVID. So I wasn't at the First City celebration, but I'm trying to put together like an open house event for my paper studio. And I'll be sure to give everybody the date so you can come and if you want to make some paper.
Can you describe your paper studio for those of us that might not know?
Yeah. I have a mobile setup. So it looks like a little VW trailer that was built by a company called Zubbox in Aurora. And they make them custom for people, for businesses and for individuals. So it has my paper making equipment inside of it. So I can take that to places and do workshops and demos on site. So I have it in my driveway. I've been working out of it outside. I just have had it for maybe a little over a month. So it's brand new and I'm excited to wheel it around and
Exciting.
make paper with people.
Thank you. That's
my
awesome.
update.
Thank you. Commissioner Buren?
I have no updates, but I'm not an artist, so.
Anything you'd like to share? We're willing to listen.
No, I've been enjoying summer.
Commissioner Wilson?
Let's see, my update. My partner and I, my husband, are feverishly working on a 6-foot by 4-foot fiber textile sculpture piece that will be featured at Mary Hill Museum. There will be an event on Saturday. It's either August 5th or 6th. I'm checking my calendar as we speak. But it's that first weekend in August at Mary Hill Museum. It's going to be a huge event, so there'll be 11 sculptures altogether, so it's 66-foot long sculpture that is a representation of the Columbia River, and all the different river sections will come together. There's going to be live sheep there with like fiber textile art demos. It's going to be a whole day event. So if you feel like going for a drive, if you've never been to Mary Hill Museum of Art, it's an art museum, you can experience this big event and then go to the art museum and go on a hike. It's going to be beautiful. Here in Oregon City, we have a new art exhibit going up at the Mary Elizabeth Gallery, which is inside Stephen Crawford Heritage House. New exhibit, I'm trying to remember when it opens. We'll just say the end of the month, but it's going to be up through the month of September into November. We'll have Kelsey is the artist, whose last name I'm forgetting right now. Sorry, Kelsey.
Kelsey Breesy?
Kelsey
Breesa.
Breesa. Kelsey Breesa. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah.
And then in October, we'll have the Ghost Show and then a holiday show. And so come check out Stephen Crawford and the Mary Elizabeth Gallery, which is next to the Ermitinger House and the Hive. And it's kind of over there in that hub of activity.
July 26th.
July 26th, is that one where?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Lindsay just sent me there because I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
I promoted.
Yes. Trias, what are you doing? Or Emma, yeah. Who's next?
So, I mean, my training as an artist was a little bit non-traditional. I wasn't just traditionally studio arts, actually. Was trained in performance and videography. So, I mean, most of my cultural output in this last month has been, we just produced 2 shows for KBOO. One of them was, we did a show two weeks ago featuring the graphic books artist Ramona Escayo. Ramona Escayo is a graphics artist who published a book called I think it's called like Your Guide to Top Surgery, and it's a book, a 128-page book for trans gender people who are going to have top surgery. So it's mostly people who are assigned female at birth who are going to have top surgery because they're transmasculine or kind of leaning transmasculine. And it's a book that explains everything that is involved in top surgery. And it's not just for the individual, but it's also for their family and for their friends to help them kind of understand why this helps with their gender dysphoria, what to expect in the process, kind of a historical perspective, and a lot of explanation about how liberating it is for people who have gender dysphoria to have top surgery. And it's a really beautifully produced graphic book from someone who does graphic arts for a living. So anyways, we featured this person on our show recently.
What's the title of the book?
The artist is Ramona Escayo, and it's The Complete Guide to Top Surgery.
Cool.
So I do a lot of cultural production like that. So that was
Yeah.
one of the things I've done recently.
Yeah, no, that sounds super important. Thank you for sharing. Trias, now it's
I have taken a job with the Chamber of Commerce. I don't know what I
Wow,
was thinking of
that's-
after 6 years of retirement, but I've taken a job as Director of Chamber Services. The Executive Director or CEO, Victoria, is managing a large grant that came through ARPA. So she hired me on to kind of do a lot of the administrative and a lot of the duties she did. So that's all new. I started 3 weeks ago, and
so now we know somebody at the chamber.
yes, I was going to say to you, will you please give me anything that you have? I'll put it in our newsletter that goes out once a week.
Yeah.
So
It's on the cusp of being prepared, literally.
Okay.
I haven't checked my email today, but yes.
Anything you'd like to put out there for the community, just send it over to me, chamberinfo@oregoncity.org. But if you send it to my personal email, I'll forward it on to my chamber email. And art-wise, so the mural down at White Rabbit, last thing left is to seal it. We're trying to coordinate between the artist's time, the construction at the Blue Heron, and the weather. So that is probably looking like the first week of August, and then we will hopefully be planning kind of a grand kind of reception and show on the finished one. Working hard with the Arch Bridge celebration with 3 different artists. Each has a petition up, and our commissioner, Mary Andrews, is helping with me with that. So that's pretty wonderful. So that's moving along. And my own art has taken a little bit of a backseat, but I go in my art room and look at my unfinished painting and say, I should do something. So anyway, that's it for me.
And I do have one element to add.
Yeah.
So at 3:30 or 3 o'clock? 3 o'clock is the unveiling officially of the Friends of the Oregon City Library mural.
3 o'clock when?
On Saturday.
Saturday.
Oh,
So
great.
it's the official
Yes.
unveiling. So
Yeah, that's
yes,
good to
so
know.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Treats. Will there be snacks?
I don't know. I'm just going to be there and make sure that I get pictures so that we can promote it out and
Gotta
everything.
have snacks.
I'm sure, yeah. So, and, yeah. That's my
exciting.
art-related one.
Make any comments about agenda? Just,
Yeah, does anyone have, so we want to make sure that everyone feels like that they have elements on the agenda that are important. This is the time to be able to add those items. So I know I have a bunch of staff reports to do. I also have put out a request for something you guys asked for 2 meetings ago, but we didn't get timing right. The Clackamas County Arts Alliance would like to speak in the August meeting and do the opening. So I'm working on that one. So
That'll be a busy meeting.
Awesome.
she's very excited to be able to come and speak. So.
Great.
I think we all, well, I was gonna say, I think we all know them, but maybe we don't, so. That's cool.
Nothing else for the agenda other than what we talked about for next month. I will not be there, so I'll contact Tima about being chair for the meeting, so.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. If there is no, what is it? Let me see. If there are no, wait a minute, I have to put it on my
She's got her cheat sheet.
here.
There is one thing I'd like
Yes.
us to consider.
Yes.
What would it take for us to make a motion to say that the Arts Commission could be a range, like it could be, like I do this on other boards I sit on, like maybe like a range of 7 to 9 commissioners. I mean, is there something that we could do?
I thought it was
Change
a
the
range.
language.
I thought 9 was the maximum,
9 is.
and then 5 is a minimum.
Oh, it is a range already.
So
Oh,
it's
great, already
actually,
done.
I think it's part of the, what do they call it? The city, when they reformed it,
Okay.
they set the parameters for that.
Great.
I will find that for you.
Okay, because if we lose a couple of people, I mean, we can always change the number? How
I
do we
think,
do that? How do we
I think
do
I think the city commission has to make that decision, on that one.
But if we're range, it should be fine, as long as we have 5 or more, right? I
Five
think.
is, as long as we have 5 members for quorum. But
Okay.
I will look
As long
into
as we have
that.
5. Okay,
Yeah.
great, yeah.
Yeah, I'll look into that first.
Great, that's good to know. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Anything else? Commissioner Woodward, you okay? Okay, great. So if there's no further business to come before the board, this meeting is adjourned, 8:30.
Boom.